All right, it's working. Great. Okay. So, hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to the CSU Graduate School Department keynote presentation for our first day for the AAC Graduate School Conference. We have our keynote here today, Dr. Colleen Webb, and I'm going to also introduce their bio. Dr. Colleen Webb is the Associate Dean of the Graduate School at Colorado State University. She is also a full professor with a joint appointment in the Department of Biology and Mathematics. From 2017 through 2019, she was the director of the Graduate Degree Program in Ecology and interdisciplinary program at CSU with over 130 graduate students. Colleen's research is in disease ecology, and she enjoys working with undergraduate and graduate students in this capacity. In her role as Associate Dean, she oversees diversity and inclusivity, professional development, and mentoring programs that impact graduate education across the university. So welcome, Colleen Webb.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Deanna. And just so folks know, my pronouns are she, her, hers. Deanna, I'm really happy to have people interrupt or type in the chat, and you can let me know as we're going along. I think that's totally fine. So I hope everybody will feel free to ask questions and be interactive. I think it's a great opportunity for us to have a discussion about graduate school and what it's like. Okay, so if you're thinking about graduate school, it's great to know some of the reasons that graduate school can be an excellent opportunity. You definitely leave graduate school with a sense of accomplishment. There's prestige that goes with that master's or PhD degree, and it results in greater recognition and credibility for what it is that you have to say in the workplace. 48% of American adults, those over the age of 25, have completed a bachelor's degree or higher. But only 11% of American adults have completed a master's degree, and 2% of American adults have completed a PhD. So this is part of the reason why it results in that prestige, that greater recognition and credibility. And along with this goes increased employment opportunities because of the recognition of your greater maturity in the field and knowledge base. So there's increased employment opportunities due to that and upward movement in the career path. There are also financial rewards, salaries for people who have an advanced degree, a master's or a PhD, are $10,000 to $20,000 greater per year compared to undergraduates in that first year of employment. So there's a lot of advantages to going to graduate school. And I would say for myself, this top one, the idea of personal and professional growth, was actually the most rewarding for me. I think if you reflect on your undergraduate career, you know how much you've changed during that time. And I found graduate school to be an even more intense personal transformational process that I really appreciated. Some factors to consider when you're thinking about graduate schools include aspects of the program of interest, the institution, the university itself that you're going to go to, and other outside factors. So from the program that you're thinking about looking at, you want to consider the reputation of the program and the faculty. In some programs, there are particular faculty that you will end up working with, and so you want to make sure that you're cognizant of what their reputation is, because that helps you as you move forward in your profession. It helps you gather your network, for example. You want to think about what the content is in the program, how well it matches with what your specific interests are, and how rigorous the training will be. That's part of that personal and professional transformation piece. Looking at the satisfaction of students who have come out of the program and career placement. So are they getting the kinds of jobs that you want to have? And then finally, to think about the cost and financial support structures. We'll talk in a minute about some of the options for this. From the university perspective, you want to think about what kinds of support there are for you and what the institutional culture is like, what types of financial aid might be available and how much help is there for obtaining those types of aid. You want to think about what kinds of programs the graduate school itself provides for graduate students. Do they have programs to help you with professional development? For example, those foundational or soft skills competencies that go beyond the research and scholarship that you engage in graduate school, but are really necessary additional skills in the workplace. And then do they have a strong commitment to equity and inclusivity? And then other factors you want to think about often have a lot to do with your own personal preferences and whether or not it's going to be a situation where you feel comfortable and feel like you can be successful. So you want to think about the size of the institution. Is it public or private? Where is it in the country? Is it somewhere you would enjoy living? Is it close to family? Is it far away from family maybe? Is it urban, more rural, etc.? So you want to really think about going somewhere both where the program, the university, and the community as well are going to be a good fit for you. It's a big investment of your time and effort, and so you want all of those things to be aligned to help you maximize your success. So I want to talk a little bit about the types of degrees and what they mean. So the master's degree generally takes 1 to 3 years to complete. It often requires that students pay their own tuition and fees, but not always. There are financial aid types that are available for master's degrees as well. Master's degrees are often more coursework focused. They're sort of a stepping stone to a PhD or a capstone experience that really prepares you well for example, industry work or teaching or something like that. There's 3 main types. The first 2 are research-based, and these are either Master of Science or Master of Arts degrees. They can be research-based with a thesis. The thesis is usually the equivalent of sort of 2 chapters or 2 papers to complete lobes or aspects of a project. That's often referred to as a type A master's. The research-based master's with a project can be referred to as a type B master's. This usually requires a smaller project or project that would be more on the order of 1 paper or 1 completed lobe of a project, so a little bit less than the expectations of the thesis-based master's. And then finally, there's a type C or coursework only master's. It depends. Sometimes these do have internships. They're generally viewed as being a professional master's degree, like a master's of education. There's a master's of engineering, social work, etc. So PhDs or doctorate degrees take about 4 to 6 years to complete, so they're much more of an investment. They often include some type of financial support, an assistantship or fellowship that covers both tuition and a stipend. It usually involves 2 years of coursework and then 2 years or even more of research. There are also, those are for research-based PhDs. There are also professional doctorships or doctorates that require residencies or internships, some kind of professional experience. These usually require a preliminary exam in the first couple of years that basically test your knowledge base and your sort of understanding of the norms of the field that you're in and your ability to apply those. And then after that point, you move on to the research piece, and that's the dissertation. Dissertations consist of 3 to 6 chapters or projects, so they're much more involved. Deanna, maybe I'll just stop there for a second and see if there's any questions about the different kinds of degrees. I'll be talking about CSU's profile with graduate school and what you need to do to get yourself ready in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, thank you. We want to give opportunity now for folks to include in the chat, and I'll be helping moderate that. If you have any questions about any information so far, please do that now, and we'll have more opportunity throughout the presentation as well.
Sure.
Any questions so far, comments? So we have a question, Dr. Colleen. How likely is it to receive a PhD without a master's? If so, what would a likely candidate look like?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. So I think that, I started a PhD directly from my undergraduate, and I take on students who do that. I think so it's definitely possible. I think from the faculty perspective, the main concerns are really about the maturity of the student and the ability to jump right into that more intense degree program of the PhD. I think it requires you to be fairly focused and to have a very good idea of what it is that you want to do in the program. If you're a little less sure about what you want to do, or perhaps your your application isn't as strong as you might want it to be, then the master's degree can be a great option as a stepping stone to the PhD. But I don't want to give the impression that that's all it is, because master's degrees are also important degrees in and of themselves. Thinking about the profile of a student who would move directly from the bachelor's degree to the PhD, they're generally somebody who has been very involved in their field, has already taken plenty of advanced courses at the 400 level, maybe even has tried a 500 level course or two and been successful there. And they definitely would have research experience in that area. So they would have been involved already working with a faculty member as an undergraduate, because that helps demonstrate that the student has the maturity to enter that doctorate program. And I also like to see, if at all possible, that that student has interacted enough with the lab that they're working in to earn a co-authorship on a paper, because that demonstrates that a student can move a project all the way from the beginning, all the way over the arc of the research to the very end successfully. And that's something that's going to need to be repeated at that doctorate level. I'd also mention that there are doctorate programs as well that require students to earn a master's degree along the way. And so, of course, in those programs, students move directly, into a PhD level program, but via that required master's. So hopefully that answers that question. If there's any follow-up, please just let me know.
Thank you for that question. And James said, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a great question.
We have another question from Emily. Is tuition usually higher for master's degrees compared to undergrad degrees?
Yes. However, sorry, I'm hesitating about that. I'm backtracking on that. I'm actually not that sure what undergrad tuition is nowadays. My daughter's about to go to college, so I'm gonna learn. Yeah, I'm gonna backtrack on that. I think tuition for a graduate degree right now is about $6,000 a semester. So, do you know, Deanna, what undergrad tuition is? I'm sure most of the students here know.
I think it's good to know for everyone who's in here also that there's going to be a different presentation. Yes, Heidi is in here. Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah.
Heidi commented that both Heidi and Brandy are going to talk about that during their presentation, which is coming up next.
Awesome.
We are talking about funding, graduate school differences between those pieces that Emily is mentioning. So Emily, I don't know if you're able to make it to that presentation, but just know that if you can't, we will be recording it to have folks access that like more in-depth information about funding and tuition.
And Deanna, can I ask you to put my email address in the chat, colleen.webb@colostate.edu, because people should feel free. You can just shoot me an email if you have additional questions that we don't get answered today. I'm very happy to answer those questions by email. Okay, so I'm going to move on then. I'd like to share a little bit with you about CSU's graduate program. So we are a Carnegie Research 1 institution, an R1 institution, and that means we are a doctoral granting institution with the highest level of research activity. CSU brings in more than $398 million, almost $400 million in research funding every year. And we are ranked in the top 50 universities in terms of federal research grants, and in the very, very top of federal research grants for universities that don't have a medical school. So there's a lot of research that's going on campus, and most of that is driven by graduate students. They work with their faculty member to do the research work that is funded. The university has a total enrollment of 33,000 students. Approximately 51% are women, 23% are international, 19% are minoritized students, and more than 20% are first generation. For graduate students, we have about 4,000 students that are on campus and about 25,000 students that are participating in online graduate programs, and that's throughout all 8 colleges. We offer 80+ master's programs and about 50 PhD programs. Some of these also can be gained. There are what are called 4+1 type programs. And so these are for students who are in the advanced part of their bachelor's program, and with an additional year can gain a master's degree. We have a number of top programs here at CSU. Just a couple that I'd mention would be psychology, sociology. We have an excellent occupational therapy master's degree. It ranks 6th in the country, and a wonderful Master of Public Health degree as well. The Ecology program is also highly ranked, but there's lots and lots of other great programs at CSU as well. Those are just a couple that I wanted to mention. And then CSU's Graduate School. So this is something to think about what it is that we do and what we offer. Our mission is a real commitment to student success. We work with recruitment, admissions, progress, completion of applications, and other career services support. We offer professional development programs, mentoring programs. We put on the Graduate Student Showcase, which is a place, a symposium for graduate students across the university to share their research. We run the Graduate Center for Inclusive Mentoring, which works with faculty to develop best practices around mentoring, especially through the lens of diversity and inclusion. We work with students around assistantships and financial aid. We help develop and offer benefits programs for graduate students, including parental leave, supplementing health insurance benefits, and also mental health resources. We work closely with the Graduate Student Council, which is a group of graduate students that help us understand, well, they do a lot of work just themselves, but we work closely with them to understand the voice of graduate students and what the needs are. And we follow very closely the principles of community. They stand for our values and our commitment to diversity and inclusivity. Maybe a few more details on some of these. So our professional development program, we offer 10 to 12 workshops each semester with tips on academic and career success. We have a competencies framework that shows you all of the resources that are available to graduate students on campus. We also support CSU Writes, which is an innovative teaching and teaching program that helps you learn best practices and develop good habits around writing. We offer innovative teaching and learning training and some grants to faculty to help develop other programs. The Graduate Student Showcase we're working on right now, it usually has about 300 students that are involved sharing their research. There are a number of awards that are given, about $17,000 in awards across about 12 students. And students from this are also selected for the VPR Graduate Fellows Program, the Vice President for Research Program, which provides a mentoring program for those students and a $4,000 fellowship. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the assistantships in a minute. And I know that the presentation after mine will have much more detail. So I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about sort of the general steps about applying to graduate school and how to prepare for that. I also shared with Deanna a couple of handouts around that, so hopefully students will have received that, so they'll have a little bit more information. Okay, so as soon as possible, right now, you want to work on maintaining the highest GPA that's possible, taking relevant coursework and meaningful coursework in your field. You want to build your resume, like I was talking about before, in terms of research experiences or internships, whatever is most appropriate in your field. You want to start talking with your professors. I think at CSU, it can be very challenging depending on what program you're in, because oftentimes there are very large classes that can feel a little bit anonymous. But you really need to build a relationship with your professors, because they'll provide you excellent advice about applying to graduate school in your particular field, as well as provide you with letters of reference. And those letters of reference are more meaningful the more specific they can be about you, which comes from having a relationship with your professor who's doing the letter writing. And you want to start thinking about your interests and narrowing down the programs and degree type that you want to proceed with, and thinking about that fit question that we talked about earlier. So about 12 to 18 months before you want to start, you should be researching graduate programs, potential faculty advisors, and the universities and communities that you think you might be interested in. Look at the particular application procedures for that program. If there are exam requirements like the GRE, the Graduate Record Exam, or the GMAT, the Graduate Management Admissions Test. Not all programs are requiring those anymore, but some still do. And if so, then you want to study for and prep for those exams. And you want to spend a little bit of time visiting the locations in the graduate program, and particularly the faculty that you think you might be working with, so you can get a good feel for the programs of interest. And then about 6 to 12 months before the start date, you want to prepare your application materials and secure those letters of recommendation that I was talking about earlier. You want to take the GRE or GMAT if that's something that's required for the programs that you're applying to. You want to talk with those programs or the faculty that you're thinking about working with about financial aid opportunities, and you want to schedule your visits and interviews. One thing I want to say is that programs differ a little bit about how the application works, but some programs generally take a pool of students and then sort out who the advisors are going to be later after they have some basic coursework. But other programs only take students who have an identified advisor who has agreed to mentor them and support them. And in that case, you really need to have that advisor identified during the 6 to 12-month period. You want to approach them during that time. And often that looks like an email to begin with from the faculty member. You want to tell them not just what you're going to get out of working with them, but what they're going to get out of working with you. And I think it's very important that you make an argument to them about why you're an excellent fit for their particular lab and research program. So often that means that you've done your homework, you've looked at some of their papers, and you can speak to what it is that they do in a knowledgeable way. So just a couple of hints about how to do that. If they show an interest in you, then it's time to ask for like a Zoom call or something like that where you can talk further. And I'd really recommend that you ask some questions, not just around the sort of knowledge that you'll gain from the program, the courses you might take, what the financial package might look like, but you want to ask them about their mentoring style as well, so that you know that there's somebody who is going to be supportive of you. Okay, any questions around that piece?
If you have questions for any new folks who jumped on, feel free to include those in the chat. I can help moderating those. Any questions about these pieces? And I mentioned before also, all the handouts will also be followed up with the presentation recordings after the conference as well. We don't have any questions right now, Dr. Colleen Webb. If you want to continue.
Sure, I'll move on. Okay, so now I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the types of funding sources that you can access for graduate school. And then Heidi and Brandy, who'll be talking after me, will provide a lot more detail on several of these. But as you can see, there's a variety of different funding sources that you can tap into to help pay for graduate school. It's a little bit different than undergrad in that way. So one of the main types of support that I think about are assistantships. There's really three kinds: the graduate teaching assistantship, or GTA. You probably have lots of experience with these types of positions because you'll have worked with them in your courses. In general, they require the teaching or helping to teach of one course per semester. They're about 20 hours per week. All of these are expected to be about 20 hours per week. The graduate research assistantship, or GRA, the student is conducting up to 20 hours a week of research for their advisor. It's often related to their thesis or dissertation work. And then the graduate support assistantship, which is administrative support for an academic department or a unit, often, for example, in a student affairs office. So GTAs, GSAs, and GRAs will often provide a stipend, a tuition benefit where full tuition is paid, and sometimes additional benefits. So for example, at CSU, we provide health insurance and parental leave. And the minimum stipend at CSU right now is $1,690 a month. So that gives you like a rough idea. It's enough to live on, but not enough to get rich on for sure. So we do pay tuition, and most universities are doing this at the in-state tuition rate. So it often requires that the student becomes a resident of the state. The level of stipend varies by university and sometimes by discipline as well. All of them generally are no more than 20 hours a week. Students may be required to register for a minimum number of credits to receive benefits. And so here at CSU, that's 5 credits, and often that is at other universities around that amount. And this is often used to fund PhDs. I would say many PhD students obtain assistantships and are not self-pay. And some master's programs as well are able to support students through assistantships. Scholarships and grants are another type of support. So scholarships are gift aid that do not have to be repaid. I just want to mention a couple that we have at CSU. The Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship, which is given for students who are doing significant work to better education for diverse populations. The McPherson Scholarship, which is for people who have completed their bachelor's degree at Adams State University and or grew up in the San Luis Valley. And the university, well, the graduate school has a financial aid page that lists a number of other types of national scholarships that you can apply for. And then grants are financial aid that do not have to be repaid. Many of you should make sure that you're aware of the Colorado Graduate Grant. It's for Colorado residents pursuing graduate degrees. It's around $3,000 to $4,000, and you can gain 50% of that, those funds if you're taking 5 to 6 credits, and 100% if you're at 7 credits or more. 9 credits is also considered full-time for graduate students. Okay, so fellowships support graduate students pursuing research, mainly in STEM, but also in the humanities. Here are a couple of sort of well-known programs. These would include the National Science Foundation Bridge to Doctorate, the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, NIH programs, National Institute of Health, the Ford Foundation Diversity Fellowship, and the GEM Fellowship Program, which is an engineering fellowship for certain universities that have membership in the GEM program. It includes an industry partner that provides internship experience. The stipend and the tuition benefit that you get from fellowships vary. It depends on the fellowship. And getting a fellowship usually involves writing a competitive research proposal and getting letters of recommendation. Most fellowships are highly competitive and considered to be quite prestigious. They're a great experience to apply for, whether you get one or not. The work that you do to articulate your research program in the required statement is very helpful in defining what it is that you want to do. And graduate students often have to write similar proposals anyway. At least PhD students do work with their committees and outline what the research is that they'll be doing for their dissertation. So it's a great process to participate in, regardless of whether or not you win one of these fellowships or not. So highly recommend it. And then I know there'll be a lot more discussion about loans in the next presentation, but there's 2 main types: the Stafford Federal Direct Loan, which is unsubsidized, and then the Federal Direct Plus or Graduate Plus loan. These loans are not need-based. The interest can be paid while in graduate school or accumulated and added to the loan amount for the Stafford. And a couple more details about these. I know we'll be talking about these more in the next presentation. And a few details here as well about these other loan types. There are also private loans that are available as well, but these should only really be considered, in my opinion, after applying for federal aid and reviewing what your whole aid package is, including any assistantships that you might be offered. Because these private loans are non-federal loans made by a lender like a bank or a credit union or state agency, and they typically have higher interest rates and fewer repayment plans or options. Okay, and then what about students who are dreamers or who qualify under DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program? And these students may not be eligible. They're not eligible for federal or state financial aid. They can be eligible for some institutional aid. So students under DACA still apply or still qualify for GTAs and GSAs. And there are also some institutional scholarships or fellowships and grants for all dreamers. Students who are asset students qualify for in-state tuition in Colorado. And so that's for students who are a graduate of a Colorado high school and have attended high school in Colorado for at least 3 years. and were admitted into an undergraduate program within 12 months of graduating from high school. Any questions that I can answer at this point about sort of what the picture for how you pay for graduate school looks like?
Yes, please include any questions in the chat.
It's not always true, so I don't want to give a misperception, but I would say often or frequently there is more self-pay for the professional type degrees like the Plan C masters that we talked about, or a professional doctorate, and thesis-based masters or dissertation research-based PhDs often have assistantship support that go with them. That's particularly true in STEM, not as much in liberal arts, but in liberal arts as well. They need graduate students to help teach all those composition classes. So there are opportunities there as well. Any questions, Deanna?
None have come through right now, but continue to just put them in here as we go through the presentation. Actually, yes, I do see one.
Okay.
Who would you recommend reaching out to for assistantships?
So that's usually something that you're going to talk to the program about as you're doing the application. And so that's something that you definitely want to ask about and work through. If it's one of those situations where you're coming in as a cohort, then that will be part of what the program is offering. If it's a particular faculty member that you're establishing a relationship with, then they would usually have access to a GTA or GSA position through the department, but you would work through them for that. And if they have research grants, then they would have GRAs that would be available. So that's something to kind of negotiate or ask about either with the faculty member that you're corresponding with or the program. And oftentimes you can get information about that by working with the program coordinator, the staff member who's in charge of providing information about the application process to applicants. Great question.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions? All right, we'll continue to just put those in the chat, and I will be helping with Dr. Colleen Webb when those come up. So
Perfect.
Until we go through like that time, just do it whenever.
Yeah, so I have just a couple more slides to finish up, and then I hope we'll have some opportunity for some more Q&A. So if anybody, spend a little time now thinking about what your questions might be. Okay, so here's another option that I just want to bring up. I would never dissuade someone from pursuing a master's degree or a PhD, but I want to make sure that people are aware of this third option, just in case we have some students that maybe aren't ready to commit to a full master's or PhD program. And these are graduate certificates. So if you're not sure if graduate school is for you, but you want to try it in a meaningful way, or if you decide not to apply now, but you want to gain some more expertise later, this could be an option. Or if you're not accepted into graduate school this time, you can improve your chances moving forward in reapplication by showing success, which means a greater than a 3.0 GPA in graduate level classes. So this is another way to do that. So these certificates are usually quite specialized. They're meant mostly for people in the workforce to gain additional expertise in their particular area, but it can be a great option for some people who are just leaving their bachelor's, depending on sort of what their field and interests are. So these certificates usually are 9 to 15 credits, so about 3 to 5 courses. You do need to apply for them, and they require a baccalaureate degree, but the application process is much simpler, and the requirements are not as stringent as they are for a master's or PhD program. And courses from a certificate like this can be used towards graduate degree programs if, if you would decide to move on to that. Financial aid can be available for certificates, but it's much more limited than it is for a master's or PhD. And we have about 47 graduate certificates available at this time at CSU, but these are always being added. So just wanted to sort of make sure that people were aware of that. This is something that is relatively new that graduate schools are offering. This definitely was not something that was available when I started graduate school, for example, although that was 30 years ago. But still, probably just in the last 5 to 10 years, these have really gotten popular. Okay, and then I just wanted to mention that CSU waives the application fee for graduate school for TRIO students. And there's a number of other, if you're here but you're not a TRIO student, there are a number of other ways that you might qualify to have that application fee waived. But I just wanted to make sure folks knew that that was an option. So here's my email. If you have other questions that we don't get answered today, please feel free to answer or to just send me an email. And I think, Yana, you put that in the chat too, so people can reach out. And then I just want to thank everybody for their time and attention today. And I'm really happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Colleen Webb. Before we open up space for questions, in case folks need to jump off, I just want to remind folks that we will be following up with this information, with the recording, with handouts that Dr. Colleen Webb has, including a little bit more information about that waiver at CSU for students. And so just know that that will be coming after the conference. And then continue to refer to the program for other pieces throughout the day for the schedule, and just keep an eye out for the evaluation form that will come at the end of the conference on Saturday that will ask about evaluations for all of the sessions and your experience overall. But now I want to make sure we do have time for questions for anyone who's in the space who also wants to share anything related in their experience that they know in terms of anything that Dr. Colleen Webb covered today. Any questions, comments?
I'd really encourage you to ask questions now if you have any questions about the process, or like the earlier question about, what's the profile of a student moving directly from bachelor's to PhD. Those are things that I work on a lot and have a lot of experience with. So if you have it, any question you want to ask is great, but if you have any questions about that, I'm probably a good person to ask those.
Awesome. Well, we do have one question. The question is, what are some factors that determine how long it takes to complete a graduate degree? You said 1 to 3 years. How is that time frame determined?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on the program often and what the requirements of the program are. So, most master's degrees require at least 30 credits, but some require more. And so, of course, if it requires more credits, then it's going to take a longer period of time. So that's one consideration. The type of master's that you're doing makes a difference. So Plan C or coursework masters often can be completed in a year, but those that require research can take longer. I think especially people who are in fields that require like field work or lab work that is not well established, it can take a little bit longer just because there's greater uncertainty in how quickly the research piece can progress. So I think that is a factor. And then also I would say like the level of focus of the graduate student is a big piece of it. So sometimes if students aren't quite sure what they want to do, it can just take a little bit longer to get through that program. I think it's not a, sometimes it's a direct effect because they're trying different things, and sometimes it's an indirect effect just because it impacts the motivation of the student and their, you know, ability to really get in there in the lab and be, you know, efficient, I guess, with their research piece. And definitely being in a good space with regard to personal wellness and mental health definitely helps make faster progress with the degree. And that's something that you can be proactive about, making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And then I think maybe the last piece that impacts that is what the financial package is like, because if students need to also work and or they have other responsibilities, then that can slow down the progression as well because they may not be full-time every semester. So hopefully that helps explain some of the factors that are involved.
Great. We do have another question. How many internships and research would you recommend to do during undergrad?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, I think it depends on how much you already know about what it is that you want to do. So if you're in a lab and you're having a great experience and it's really something that you like, then I don't think you need to have more than one necessarily. And there can be some real advantages to sticking in the same research setting or internship setting for several years, because it allows the faculty member or the person that you're working with to really get to know you, so that they can provide excellent mentorship and letters of recommendation for you. So it doesn't necessarily need to be more than one. But I do think getting involved in research as soon as possible, or internship experiences as soon as possible, is really important. The more of that you have in terms of time, the better. And if you don't know what you want to do exactly, then I think it's fine to have a number of research experiences so that you can kind of, you know, try different things out and see what works for you. But it's great if towards the end of your graduate career, if you can have at least a year in a lab with a faculty member or in an internship program. Like I said, because that really allows people to get to know you and support you, as well as showing to the programs that you are applying to that you're able to stick with something for an extended period of time, because that's what you need to do for a graduate degree. And the graduate degree can be a really intense time. So showing your perseverance is important. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Dr. Colleen Webb. Any other questions from folks? I know folks need to jump off, so definitely do so if you need to. We still have a couple of minutes. Our session goes until 10:55, just to help folks get transitioned over to another Zoom session or other things. Any staff have any questions or comments? All right, well, I don't see any other questions coming in, Dr. Colleen Webb. I just want to thank you for being here, for doing this presentation with us again for our AAC Trio Graduate School Conference. I want to welcome folks to also thank Dr. Colleen Webb. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for inviting me, and thanks everybody for your time and attention.
I'll stay on for a little longer, just in case anyone has a question, a personal question.
Deanna, can I confirm how many students we had? I think it was 15, you said?
Yeah, we had about like, I think at one point we had about 17 folks. And so what we're hoping to do is be able to pull that information from Zoom.
Oh yeah,
Meetings,
okay.
so we'll be able to follow up and send you that as well. And
Okay.
then we're also hoping to give all presenters also just like eval information.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That would be great. I'm trying to figure out how to unshare my screen. But maybe I will just leave the meeting since it doesn't seem like we have more questions.
I'm going to stop recording as well.